Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our freshman-sophomore family night. Everyone can grab a seat. My name is Kathy Hirsch. I'm one of the 7 school counselors here, and our counselors are all lined up. You'll hear from each of them tonight. And I want to first thank ACMi for being here. They're doing actually a live stream of this event, and we will have the recording posted on our website after the fact for anyone who wants to re-review or didn't get to join us tonight. So we'll start by showing you the breakdown of our school counseling caseload assignments. Students are assigned to us by their last name and grade level. It can be a little bit confusing, so sometimes you have to check the chart to make sure you're with the correct counselor. But this is our contact information. We are also fortunate to have an intern this year, Sophia Shavs, who was with us for half of last year and will be with us for the remainder of this year. She's been super helpful. The assignments will be for 4 years, so you'll be working with the same counselor for your student each year. And we would like to share with you, this is actually National School Counselor Week, in case you're wondering. Thank you. And one of the fun statistics that Karen Batchelor put together is that collectively we have 114 years of experience as school counselors among the 7 of us. So we hope that helps to reassure you that we're very experienced and we'll do a great job working with your students. We'd like to point out one of our resources is Google Classrooms. We know students have Google Classrooms for their schoolwork, and we've created a grade level Google Classroom for the school counseling department as well for each grade level. We invited the students. Hopefully they accepted our invitation, but if not, they can still do so. And we'll be posting information, updates, timely updates throughout their time here in the Google Classroom. So it's just a great resource for them to stay current with what's happening from our point of view at Arlington High School. We'd like to share our mission statement. We worked hard on this. We'll not read it word for word. In general, we'd like you to know that we are here to work with the whole student and to support all students, and primarily work with them, meeting them where they are when they enter high school, working with them throughout the 4 years to help them develop social, emotionally, academically, help prepare them for life after high school, and support them any way we can along the way. So we do a lot. I think that this statement sort of demonstrates that, all the areas that we encompass as school counselors here at Arlington High. And we're all enthusiastic and looking forward to supporting you and your students on their journey in high school. And I'm going to turn it over to Karen Batchelor.
Good evening. I'm Karen Batchelor, one of the school counselors here. And I'm going to share a little bit of information about what a school counselor does and how we at Arlington High School support students within the school counseling department. So I like to think of a school counselor as kind of a case manager. The unique thing about a school counselor is that we work with every student in the building. So every student is assigned a school counselor. It's not a particular group of students. It is every student in the building is assigned to a school counselor. So we have the unique opportunity to get to work with students in a variety of ways over their 4 years of high school. A couple of those things are academic counseling. So we work with students on their course selection, all the way through tracking graduation credits and helping with the post-secondary planning process for whatever comes next for them after high school. So it looks a little bit different year to year. So your 9th graders have heard a lot about what to do over the next 4 years of high school. Your 10th graders in a couple of weeks are going to be hearing from us more specific about how to get involved as a student at Arlington High School and how to make it a really successful next 2.5 years of their high school experience. We do also, because we have caseloads that we follow throughout the 4 years of high school, have an opportunity to provide and kind of navigate different interventions for students. So again, kind of as that case manager type role, we are able to help students throughout the 4 years kind of just make sure that they have what they need academically and socially throughout their time here. Social emotional counseling, and you're going to hear more about all of these things. I'm kind of giving a quick intro to them. So social emotional counseling, we do work with students in individual counseling. School counselors do short-term counseling with students, and then we would provide an intervention where we're offering resources through either a school social worker or outside referral to somebody in the community. It comes up as needed, right? Every student is an individual. We treat every student as an individual. Their plan throughout high school is unique to that one person. We don't give, kind of a blanket prescriptive list of things that each student needs to do. We would give them a list of things and then say, okay, and then within that, as an individual, there's kind of different pieces to pick out and different things that can help each student. Our grade level workshops are done each year, so each counselor invites their own caseload we've been using the Discourse Lab, which is upstairs from here. It's a wonderful space if you haven't been up there. New space in the new building for us to work with our students in small groups and really get to know them on a more individual level, but not one-on-one quite yet. We meet with them individually in our offices, either by appointment, or we take walk-ins. So whatever students need, we are accessible, we are available, and really are working to support students throughout their high school experience. We also have meetings with families all the time. So if there's something going on as a parent that you're concerned about, please reach out to us. We'll set up a time to meet, to strategize, and see what interventions we can support putting in place here in the school. In terms of some specific things we do here at Arlington High School, so again, our grade level workshops, we had our 9th graders in December, where we got to meet them in our groups. It was a wonderful opportunity, really the first time to have groups of our caseloads together, and provided them, again, with information on how to be successful throughout high school, reminding them of graduation requirements, and a lot of things that they should just keep in mind throughout their time here. In March, we'll meet with the 10th graders in the same capacity, where we'll invite them into these group sessions. Each counselor will invite their own students in, and then we'll have some makeup sessions that will be helpful if they can't make it to one of the ones that we invite them to initially. You heard a little bit about our Google Classroom. So we have a Google Classroom for each grade level. So things that we put in there from our department are announcements, reminders, tips, and things that we think students should have access to. We try not to inundate them with too much information. We try to make it really kind of student-driven and making sure that it's information that the students need. Information as parents, we'll send out by email and make sure that you're getting that information. We also do a lot of updates to our website. Our department website has a lot of historical information, relevant information that is more current. Our announcements page always has links to things like this, this presentation. So there's always relevant information available on our website. If you have questions, it's a great place to look for information. And our department newsletter goes out on or around the 1st of each month during the school year. And depending on the time of year, it might be just something to keep an eye on and look at. This time of year, seniors are keeping an eye on it because it's a lot of scholarship information. Juniors are looking at it because it's a lot of information about the college and career planning process. So it's going to be different throughout the high school years of you as parents and how you access that information and what you use the newsletter for. We do individual meetings with students. Again, students can sign up for appointments with us. They can email us. They can come in and just drop into our office. If we're available, we'll welcome them in and be able to discuss whatever's going on that they need our help with. We do one-on-one course selection meetings. So this spring, we will have classes come down and we will meet with each student individually to go over their course requests for next year and make sure that they are coming up with a really good, balanced schedule. We can make referrals to the Learning Center. So that is a sort of study hall structured program guided by a teacher. And so there's interventions that we can absolutely support getting into place for students. We meet with students and their teachers, so we take a collaborative approach to making sure that we are supporting students with having those conversations and really ongoing communication with teachers and parents. And we encourage students to use Naviance. So Naviance is our software you're going to hear much more in a little bit. Naviance is our college and career planning software, and we introduce 9th graders to this. So they have access to it very early on in high school, and we each year take a little piece of Naviance to introduce them to. So here's a little kind of neuropsychology piece of information for the night. So this is the adolescent brain. And I'm going to read because it's kind of small print at the bottom. The frontal lobe is responsible for high-level reasoning, decision-making, impulse control, assessment of consequences, planning, strategizing, organizing, inhibiting appropriate behavior, adjusting behavior when the situation changes, setting priorities, estimating, and understanding probabilities. If any of this is like, whoa, the frontal lobe is something that my child is struggling with having developed. Just remember, the frontal lobe is actually a part of the brain that develops last. Most people don't have a fully functioning frontal lobe until they're in their mid to late 20s. So my message to you as parents tonight is to remember that teenagers will make mistakes. We will guide them, we will support them, we will encourage them to learn and grow from those mistakes. And a lot of it is really science. And so please, let's work together to make sure that we're encouraging our students to really just do their best throughout high school, and they'll make it through. And then I am passing it on for some data and information to Ms. Benson. Thank you.
Well, an underdeveloped frontal lobe is a perfect segue to talk about the 2021 Arlington Youth Risk Behavior Survey highlights. Before I jump into that, I just wanted to explain what the acronym is the YRBS. Just for a little background, this is a survey that was developed in 1990, and it is just administered every 2 years in the US for grades 9 through 12 in both public and private high schools. So it's kind of an interesting tidbit. I thought initially that it was just for public high schools, but it's actually for both. And the reason for this, the inception of this survey, was to help monitor health behaviors that contribute to issues that high schoolers can experience. So like social problems, health issues, both physical and social emotional. So this survey is administered in the odd number years. So this is 2023. This spring, your student is going to take, if you opt in, will participate in this survey. It's 87 questions. I suspect it'll happen during an advisory period. And this information that we glean from it helps us get a snapshot of how they're doing. Questions range, I took a look at it this evening, just to get a sense of the questions. They ask about seatbelt use, whether or not your child has driven in a car with someone who's consumed alcohol. They talk about relationship violence, vaping, use of prescription medication and other drugs. It even delves into sexual behavior, diet, physical activity, and your student's relationship with social media. So this is a really important survey because it captures a lot of information. So I'm thrilled that this year for the 9th and 10th grade parent night we can talk about YRBS because it's going to happen this spring. So these results are from the 2021 YRBS here for the Arlington students. We were not surprised that 27% of the students reported that their mental health was not good most of the time. 2021, we were still in the COVID, kind of the depths of COVID. It was a really hard time. I suspect you saw similar results at home. We certainly saw it in students as well. 42% of AHS students reported that school demands
cause them negative stress. 25% reported busy schedules, and 13% about worrying about their future. I think the part about the busy schedules is particularly telling because this is a common concern for most families and certainly for staff here at AHS, and that's during COVID when things were still kind of throttled back a bit. So we really try, especially as we gear up for our course selection meetings in the next month, and when we're checking in with students, balance really is the order of the day. I know that's kind of a loosey-goosey word, and it feels like what do these people mean by balance? And by balance, we hope it means that your student isn't up until midnight, late studying, that they have a social life, but they're not out until like the wee hours of the night, and that you feel comfortable about their social and academic lives. And if at any time this feels off kilter, then we are really great resources, so we can kind of support you and support that student here in the building. Substance use, the YRBS asks questions about it. Overall, a trend, and this is probably no surprise, it increases as the student progresses in high school. Curiosity as they grow older, more experimentation is pretty common as the grades increase. Alcohol was the most commonly used substance by AHS students. Over a third of them were reporting that they had consumed alcohol in the prior 30 days when they administered this the survey. And AHS students generally assess substances through friends or family members. The family member piece is typically around prescription drug medication. So I'm sure you hear this through the pediatrician as well, but it's important to be really mindful about what's in your medicine cabinet, not only to protect your own children, but also if you have other kids, hanging out at your house, as I'm sure many of you do. So it's important to keep an eye on that. That can be a quick thing that kids can get their hands on. So just be mindful of that. Then the support networks and treatment access. This, to me, felt really positive. 81% of AHS students reported that they are able to use coping strategies to relieve stress. That's pretty amazing, right? So advisory lessons at the high school, work in 9th grade PE and wellness. They're big. It's not just like kind of the gym class that we remember where it was, how many hangs can you do from the bar or whatever, or push-ups. It's like they really talk about mental health wellness and social media wellness and how to support these students. 61% of AHS students reported that they have at least one teacher or other adult in the school they can talk to. That's great. We'd like to see that number go up, and we are hopeful that the results of the 2023 YRBS should demonstrate a higher number there. There is, between teachers, school counselors, and school social workers, there's a really good support network here for your student. And we're happy to connect them to either us or a school social worker if they need. Then 82% of students that they have a parent that they can talk to. That is fantastic. Just one tick above that they have a coping strategy, but that's good. That speaks to the resilience of this community and the positive relationships these students have with their caregivers. So, hats off to you all for fostering and continuing to foster those positive relationships. Ninth, I say this to this, like if there's a student in my office and they're struggling, there is not an adult in this building who would go back to 9th and 10th grade themselves, right? But we're here willingly because we love working with your students at this age range, but it's hard to be a high school student. So that compassion and understanding you show them at home, I can't tell you how much it means to them, and that percolates here at the school. And then 17% of AHS students receive care through prescribed medications. Not uncommon. Many students take medications for many reasons, whether it be for executive functioning or anxiety or depression or whatever the case may be. That is not uncommon here. at the high school, and we support whatever a student needs to do in order to be healthy. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ruane for trends in social media. Thank you.
All right, good evening everyone. Once again, my name is Matt Ruane, and I'll be jumping in with trends in social media. So I think to an extent we all know the strong influence that social media has on teenagers, right? TikToks and Instagrams, I'm sure there's a dozen other, but I think it's important that we recognize how active our students are in the cyber world and what that activity looks like. Because in a lot of ways, social media can be a fun, harmless way of interacting with your peers, but then in other ways, it can be misused and even abused at times. So 2 terms that I want you guys to be familiar with. One is cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is using an electronic device to bully another. Typically this is done by sending messages of threatening or intimidating nature. This is nothing new. You know, for the past decade or 2, we've all been aware of this, and certainly if you feel at any point like your student might be a victim of cyberbullying, please let us know so we can help. Now the other term I want to mention is digital footprint. So digital footprint is information about a person that exists in the internet due or as a result to their online activity, okay? So where I think a lot of our students are familiar with cyberbullying, I think they've been educated on that, they understand for the most part what's right and wrong. I don't think they're as familiar with digital footprint. I think a lot of these social media platforms tell you, you know, pictures disappear in 24 hours or messages you can unsend. But I don't think the students understand the permanency of what they're putting online, and they might not always be thinking about who they're sending or sharing that information with, okay? So we just want to make sure that they're aware that they're protecting themselves and not putting themselves in vulnerable positions. Now, I also wanted to include this statistic from a 2020 study that shows that 36% of college admission reps were checking applicants' social media profiles as part of the application process. And I assure you that number has only gone up in the past 2 to 3 years. So 42% of the time it had a positive impact on the student's application, and the way I read that is it didn't have a negative impact. And 58% of the time it did have that negative impact. And I think it's just students need to be aware of the photo content, the messages, and even just the usernames, making sure that they're appropriate, that they're mature, that they're a representation of themselves in the best light. So, you know, working with you folks on, you know, helping us with monitoring that social media, but also helping us monitor the signs of distress. You know, we really love collaborating with parents because we see it as we have eyes on your students while they're in school. And we like to share that information with you, where you guys have eyes on them after school, and we like you guys to share that information with us. So as counselors, we really take pride in the fact that, you know, we get to know our students, we build relationships, we understand who they are as individuals, their normal behaviors, but it can be a little tricky in 9th and 10th grade because we haven't really met them enough times to understand what's normal behavior and what may be a student in distress. Okay, so freshmen we may have met a couple times at this point, sophomores maybe 4 times at this point. So we're going to get to know them better as they progress through high school. But we want to make sure, again, that you folks are working with us to let us know if something you're seeing is out of the ordinary, right? Maybe they're starting to display drastic mood changes, okay? So of course all high schoolers have these mood swings, but if they start to seem more extreme or more frequent, you know, communicating with us, you know, letting us know that there might be more to the story here. Declining academic performance, and that's not to say, hey, in term 3 my student went from a B+ to a C+, you know, bring in all the supports you got. It's more so to say, okay, we're noticing a decline in a lot of classes or multiple classes. We're noticing that their academic behavior has changed, their attitude towards school has changed. Changes in sleep patterns, are they up all night, are they napping in the afternoons? Of course, substance use, feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness, this is a big one. Because students will have moments where they're feeling overwhelmed and anxious, right? They have a big paper or a test, they might feel helpless, how do I get started? That's not as concerning as the student who feels hopeless that things are not going to improve or they're losing their self-worth. In that case, please let us know so we can intervene immediately. Poor personal hygiene, changes in eating patterns, loss of interest, activities and hobbies, lack of energy, motivation, and certainly withdrawal from friends and family. Okay, because our goal here is we want students to feel as connected as possible. We want them connected with their teachers, their peers, the school, extracurriculars, the community. And when students start to sever those connections or withdraw, that's really alarming in the sense of we need to figure out what's going on and get them reconnected. Okay? So again, just working with you folks to help identify any signs of distress that may come up. So universal screeners, we have 2 screeners here at Arlington High School. We do a mental health screening for all students, unless there's an opt-out, from 9th to 12th grade. We do that both in the fall and in the spring. And this is to help identify students who may be struggling with anxiety and or depression. This is not a diagnosis. So we're not saying students have anxiety or depression based on this brief survey. We're just checking in with students to see who might be in need of a follow-up conversation, right? Now, when we have those follow-up conversations, of course, we'll loop you folks in to make sure that you are aware, and we'll also share the supports that we have available to your student. We have amazing social workers here who do great work, and they even have follow-up groups for students who may be struggling with anxiety and depression to help them build coping skills moving forward. We also do an SBIRT screening for all 9th grade students, and SBIRT stands for Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral to Treatment. And referral to treatment doesn't mean we call the ambulance. Referral to treatment is a conversation that we have, okay? This happens in the springtime, and this is a public health approach, so it's across the state that can deliver an early intervention to anyone who uses alcohol and or drugs in unhealthy ways, okay? So I just want to emphasize that these screenings are here to support students. By no means are they punitive. We're not trying to catch students who might have had a beer over the weekend or something like that. We're here to support students who may be falling through the cracks. So that's why they're conducted. So just for you folks, again, we want to make sure you have this information. Hopefully you do not need to use it, but again, it's important to have. So if you're ever looking for out of school, outside of school support, we first recommend that you consult with your pediatrician, okay? At this point, hopefully your student has a pediatrician that they have a relationship with. Also, medical professional, we defer to the experts. Consulting with your health insurance provider to see what services or programs may be available to your students. The Arlington Youth Counseling Center, the AYCC, does great work with mental health counseling for any students who may benefit from that. Psychology Today, I know for some families who are looking for therapists, it's been pretty challenging lately. We have heard some pretty good things about Psychology Today, about finding local therapists who are available and seeking new clients. Massachusetts Behavioral Health Helpline is a call or text center for students who may be struggling with mental health or substance abuse. Again, heard nothing but great things about them. And our intern Sophia has put together vaping resources. So, we've seen kind of a resurgence of vaping with our high school population. It's something that we definitely want to have conversations with and help students, recognize the negative health effects of vaping and addiction. So it's really important too that, if you guys are noticing habits at home with vaping, that, you're having those conversations with the students or, informing us, okay? And then in-school supports, we don't mind at all, being that first point person, okay? If you guys have concerns and you're looking for more support in school, certainly feel free to reach out to your counselor. We also have our mental health resources listed on our AHS school counseling website if you want to visit the page and see what's available. Again, plugging our amazing social workers for students who may need a little bit of extra help, in the social emotional area. And just to note, we have some great programs here, such as Harbor, Shortstop, Workplace, Summit, Reach. I'm not going to dive into those because they deal with very specific populations, but this is more so just to show you guys that we have a lot of interventions, a lot of resources to help students get through high school, and hopefully leave here, ready for those next stages in life, right? Okay. So I'm going to be passing it off to Amy Lyons, who will be discussing academic planning at AHS.
Hi, I'm Amy Lyons. Can everybody hear me okay? So I have the end of the alphabet. So for 10th graders, I have the last names T through Z, and for 9th graders, I have the last names S-I through Z. How many 9th grade parents out there? Just kind of curious, because that's the majority. I'm also a 9th grade parent, and I also am a parent of a senior and an 8th grader. So 3 developing frontal lobes in my family, okay? We'll start up with that. So academic planning, we've already, Ms. Bachelor and Ms. Benson touched on balance and academic planning a little bit. The emphasis is on the balance in terms of not taking on too much. We work very closely with your students in terms of creating that right balance, that that you're not taking on too much, because when you do take on too much, more than one thing is impacted. I've seen that in my own, my own children. In terms of, how to decide on the right balance, we work closely and we decide. It's, my recommendation would be to challenge yourself in the things that you're most interested in. When it comes to senior year and we're writing college recommendations, it's really kind of great to tell a story about a student who's passionate about, a specific area, and also to show the, touch on the coursework that they've also had in those areas of interest. So balance is a big, big deal. Graduation requirements, I'll go through these. The students take 30 credits per year. That is a full schedule. That's what they have to carry 30 credits per year. So obviously, when we go through the graduation requirements, you'll see that the credits, the minimum credits are, below that. These are minimum graduation requirements. So obviously, most students will end up with like around 120 credits for the end of their, high school years. So in terms of graduation requirements, it's 106 credits by the end of senior year, 4 years of English, 3 years of mathematics to include Algebra 1 and geometry, and Algebra 2 too in that, but we highly recommend that students have 4 years of math. The UMass system, college system will require 4 years of math. So this is, again, minimum requirements. But we highly recommend the 4 years of math. 3 years of science, again, students should go as far as they can. These are minimum graduation requirements. 3 years of social studies, which include U.S. History 1, U.S. History 2, and modern world history. 2 years of a world language, preferably in the same language. Again, the Mass State College system recommends and usually requires the 2 years of the same language. So obviously, the further you can go with world language, the better off you are. Very beneficial in all sorts of areas in the future. 1 year of fine arts, that can be music or studio art, a combination. 5 courses in PE. So students typically have 1 PE class in 9th grade, probably 2 in 10th grade, and then 2 usually in junior year. So there's some adjustments to that, but the students fit it in where they can to get those 5 credits done. And passing score on the ELA, the math, and the science MCAS, and 40 hours of community service. So your students, the students should create an account on x2bowl.com. They can just Google it and create a password. It'll say my school, suggested that I join, so you hit join and click on there, and they create their account, and they can start to log in those hours. So the recommendation is to definitely not wait until the end of the 4 years to have those 40 hours. So the students should have, at least be doing 10 hours per year, okay? For later on, the National Honor Society, they require 30 hours for a requirement before, students are considered for that. So they have to have that minimum requirement. I'm sure I covered everything there. So a transcript, I'll put up a sample transcript, but transcripts, only the final grades are listed on a transcript for grades 9 through 11, and senior grades shown for each term, so grades in progress. Both the weighted and unweighted GPAs appear on the transcript. A weighted GPA is out of 5.25, and an unweighted GPA is out of 4.3. We do not rank, we do not decile, we do not, line up those GPAs and make a class rank for the highest GPA to the lowest. And sophomore, right now, sophomores, they have their GPAs in Naviance, in the college and career system, for the 9th grade, because that 9th grade GPA was calculated at the end of last year. At the end of this year, your 9th graders will have their GPA calculated, and that will be available in Naviance at the end of the school year. And that kind of covers everything. This is a sample transcript. I can't really see it, it's really small on my screen here. But the one thing I did want to mention too, in terms of the transcript, so you'll see right here, you can probably see it better than I can, but you'll see the class, the level, the grade, and the credit for each, and then you see that listed for each year there. At the bottom, you'll see an unweighted and weighted GPA. You'll see the final grades from 9 through 11, and you'll see the senior grades in progress. Even though we calculate a GPA here, lots of times colleges will have their own formula and they will recalculate the GPA. And one other thing that colleges later on, if that's what your student's path is, they do like to see an upward trend, an upward, that's kind of, an important thing, what kinds of things, how, not so much how they started, but how they finish, and what kinds of things that they accomplish and take on, and how they mature. So I'll turn it over to Kathy. Thank you.
So a couple of things I'm going to touch on here. One is the course selection process for next year, which we're about to begin. Students will be asked to enter their courses they'd like to request into their PowerSchool account between February 20th and March 5th. Those are the target dates from the assistant principal. So you can see online we have the program of studies for next year posted there. There'll be some new classes for students to take a look at, some new electives. So it's an exciting time for students to make choices for next year. One part of the process that will be different this year is that we will not be having teachers put recommendations for courses into the computer system for students. So we're going to ask students to sort of think about their current experience. Are they feeling like they're well challenged where they are, they have a good balance, and maybe they want to continue at the same level? Or are they ready to challenge themselves a little bit more in a subject that they're very interested in? Or as opposed to that, are they overwhelmed this year and maybe they overdid it with the levels and the choices of classes? We'd encourage them to take a step back next year. So we want them to consider their experience, put their requests into the system, and then the students will meet with their assigned counselor in March or April. We'll call them down by specific classes and sit one-on-one with them to take a look at how they're doing this year, what they're interested in doing next year, tracking their progress toward graduation requirements. So we'll be there to answer any questions and make recommendations along the way. Also, the piece of the teachers not making the formal recommendations, we still do encourage students to speak with their current teachers about, if they're uncertain about what to do next year, that's the best place to start the conversation, to start considering what's going to be the best fit for that student. And moving on a little bit to some academic help and tutoring options for students. We encourage students to begin with their classroom teacher if they're looking for extra support in a subject. All of our teachers offer either before or after school time for help for students. They post that time in their Google Classrooms. They let the students know when they're available. this is the best place to start. And I like to tell the students, these are the people who are writing the tests, who are creating the assignments, so they know exactly what they're looking for from the student. So this is really the best place to go for assistance. The teacher gets a sense that the student is really taking an interest in the class, can assess the skills level that they've seen so far in the class. So working directly with the classroom teacher is the best first stop. Another resource that we have here at school is called the Learning Center, which is open daily from 8:30 until 3, so during the school day. This is a room staffed with a teacher who's available to work with students on an as-needed basis. So some students like to go to the Learning Center because it's sort of a quiet place that they can get more work done. With open campus here at Arlington High, with the building under construction, sometimes I think it's not as easy to find that quiet place to settle down and get some work done. So this is a great space that offers that, and also offers a teacher who can help you with, maybe it's organizing your work, planning what you're gonna do for homework the next night, reviewing an essay, helping to understand math concepts that they didn't understand in class. Sometimes that helps to hear it from another teacher. So students can be assigned to the Learning Center. It's all voluntary if they want to during an open block in their schedule, or they can use it on a drop-in basis. We definitely have space available in there this year, so if that sounds like it's something that would be helpful, let your students counselor know and we can work on getting that rolling. We're also fortunate to have support from juniors and seniors who are in the National Honor Society, and they are acting as peer tutors for students. And they can be accessed on a drop-in basis in our school media center, either before or after school, daily, as you can see. They put a little sign on the table that they're the National Honor Society tutors. Additionally, we can request an assigned one-on-one tutor based on a subject area that a student is looking for assistance in. We put a link to the form to request the individual tutor here. It's on the Arlington High School website. There's an actual page for National Honor Society. So that's worth taking a look at if you're looking for support for your student. It's also a great page to look at if your student aspires to be a member of the National Honor Society and you want to take a look at what the application process looks like, the requirements, the community service that needs to be completed by the time they apply. So that's a worthwhile resource to take a look at. I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn Ress to talk about Naviance.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn Ress, and I am going to walk you through some of the features of our system that we use called Naviance. So some of you may already have an account. If you've had students who are older in the school or who have graduated already, you might be familiar with it. But Naviance is a comprehensive college and career research tool that we use with students throughout the 4 years here. So more heavily so in 11th and 12th grade, but starting right away in 9th grade, students got their accounts in December during our freshman group workshops. And they take different self-assessments to learn about their strengths and weaknesses, areas they can improve upon. They can start looking at careers, they can build resumes, and then more towards junior and senior year, they're researching different colleges, building a preliminary list, and then come senior year, it's a lot of the logistics with the applications and requesting transcripts, filling out surveys for teacher recommenders and things like that. So we work with them in the groups in Naviance and individually, and you all will get an account if you don't already have one as well. Also, just to mention that counselors and teachers submit all documents to colleges through Naviance. So it's a very important tool for our department and for students here. And so in the 9th grade, which we had our groups in December, students took the intelligences inventory and also the learning style inventory. And so these just give comprehensive reports, and these can also be reset at any time throughout the 4 years if they want to take them again. but they give a lot of really great information about their strengths, areas where they can improve. It also leads to important information about possible good career fits, and just starts the whole, self-assessment and planning for postgraduate life and college. In 10th grade, so we're going to be meeting after the break, after February break, and we're going to be introducing students to the personality profiler and the career cluster finder, and I'm going to show what those look like in a minute. And again, these just give a lot of information about different careers and what could be good fits for them based on their interests and strengths. And so parents, I'm going to send out actually an email tomorrow to all 9th grade parents with directions on how to set up your account, because parents have an account too. Sophomore parents should have received theirs last year. If you didn't, you can email your student's counselor. Also, if you have an older student or someone who's graduated, you can email your student's counselor to have this new student linked to that student, because the system is a little funny. It doesn't let you have multiple accounts with the same email. So definitely get in touch, and you'll be seeing that tomorrow for 9th grade parents. Okay. And so this is the view that students and parents see when they log in to Naviance. So for the 9th and 10th grade, we're really focusing on that self-discovery tab up there, and I'm going to show you the different assessments. And come junior and senior year, we work more off of the colleges tab. So colleges I'm thinking about in 11th grade, which then will transition over to the colleges I'm applying to tab in senior year, if that's the direction they're going. Of course, we talk about other postgraduate options too. But this has a lot of wonderful information. And this is just a view of all the different self-assessments that students can take over the years. And we can, again, like I said, we can reset them. If a student took something earlier in high school and then, come junior or senior year, they want to retake it to see how things have changed, we can certainly do that. And they can look at their results at any time. So each survey that they take gives a full report that they can then go back to and look at as they're planning and researching. So this is an example of a student's, when they took the intelligences inventory, and it just shows the results. So basically it's looking at their areas of strength, and then based on their own answers to what the different questions ask. And then the report gives information about the strengths in their intelligences, and then how to improve upon maybe the ones that are less developed. It also is fun to look at because the report gives famous people that have the same strengths that they do, so it shows all the different people, and then also different possible careers that can be good fits based on the results. And then there's also a careers tab, so everything's kind of connected, but this is just an example of a view of some of the careers. So it's alphabetical, and it shows lots and lots of data about different careers. So salary, pathway to the career, what education or skills are necessary, and just traits of students that would make them a possible good fit. And they can also mark these careers as favorites. So it builds like a nice list of different things that they're interested in. And also it shows, in the career tab, it also groups careers by clusters. So it shows, different options of different occupations within different kind of groups or fields, which is nice because it gives good ideas of things they might not have heard of that are still within that area that they're interested in. And so something else, one of the other surveys that we have them take in sophomore year is the Career Cluster Finder. So this is just an example of someone's results where it shows this student looks like they're interested in more of the business management or government sort of fields. So it just shows some nice, related occupations, and then also related college majors, and then colleges that have those majors. So there's really a lot of great information that students can kind of look at on their own. You can look at it too. and just familiarize yourself. And it starts, you know, it's a nice start to the postgraduate planning. And also I want to mention that come 11th and 12th grade, students can do our internship program. So it's actually coordinated by one of the English teachers, Ms. Edson, and there'll be information coming about this when it comes time, but it's something that students can sign up for as a class into their schedule, their junior or senior year, and there's many, many different sites based on what they're interested in. So she works with the student to find a good fit and a good site, and they can actually get credit for that as well. So lots of good things on this tool. And again, contact any of us if you have any questions or need help with your own account. So I'm going to pass it on to Danielle.
All right, hi everyone, Danielle Rakowski. We're saving the best for last. No, I'm just kidding. I know many of you are anxious to hear about some college stuff. So the first thing I'm going to say is we don't put any pressure on the students. Our message is well balanced, focus on your interests, relax freshman and sophomore year, because this time next year, I should say, freshmen have a couple of years, sophomores one more year. By this time of students' junior years, that's pretty much when we start the whole college process with the students. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a timeline. So as we know, the college process is very stressful, and there's a lot to it. So I wanted to just give you some basics tonight, and we will have time during the, after, in a few slides, we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you could just hold them until the end, just like you guys have been doing a great job with this time. So how colleges choose candidates. So it's a very holistic approach. Colleges are looking for well-rounded students, and one of the most important pieces in the process is a high school student's transcript, okay? So when colleges look at a student, the first thing they see is that document, and they look to see what courses they've taken, how strong the curriculum is there a trend, upward trend? Has the student increased rigor since 9th grade? Have they challenged themselves? And they take into consideration the levels of courses. Like Ms. Lyons said earlier, are they focused on their interests? Do they take courses that they're interested in and pursue that? And basically, how is the overall performance? Okay, so I would say the number one thing, like I said, is that strength of a high school transcript. So some freshmen come in and they have a hard transition, and they might not do as well as they had hoped, or they come in and do awesome, and then maybe one term of sophomore year they had, you know, a terrible term. It's okay, you know, as long as the trend goes this way. All right, so that's really what is most important. The next point, which is written up here, it's standardized tests, so SAT or ACT. I have no idea what the landscape is going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, okay? Right now, the students are currently in a situation where most schools are test optional. We're hoping that many colleges stick with that and stay that way. But at this point, you know, we don't know what it's going to look like when your students, you know, are applying to college. We are seeing that some class of 2025, you know, students, some of the schools are waiving for the 2025 class. So we'll see how it continues. And I just want to say one more thing. This slideshow will be posted on the school counseling website. So you see like the links like Fair Test. You'll be able to click on that link through the slideshow. But Fair Test is a good resource to see a list of schools that are test optional. Obviously, that will continue to update over time. Extracurricular involvement. So our message to students is quality, not quantity. Okay? It's not about how many extracurriculars they can fit into their life and what they could do every day and what they could do every year. Okay? We say, think about your interests, stick with those interests, try to continue with those interests over 3 to 4 years. So if it's a particular sport or a service club or an activity, you know, really try to be consistent as much as you can over your 4 years at the high school. College essay. So students will focus on that end of junior year, beginning of senior year. That's an important piece. Teacher and counselor recommendations. So we write for all of our students, and students will also have to ask some academic teachers junior, senior year. And then special talents and circumstances. So special talents could be anywhere, something from the arts or, dance or anything outside of the ordinary. And circumstances, have they had circumstances that have impacted them in any way, okay? So when we say holistic approach, these are the pieces that colleges look for. And I'm just gonna focus on the words balanced and well-rounded, okay? Those are the most important pieces. Standardized testing schedule. So each student has their own standardized testing schedule for the most part. So transfer students that come in here, they might have a little bit of a different MCAS schedule, okay? But for students that enter in 9th grade, there's a science MCAS in June. Typically, it's physical science. There are some students that will be taking the bio if they're transfer students. 10th grade is math and ELA, so March and May of 10th grade. And for the most part, all students will have met their MCAS graduation requirement by the end of 10th grade, okay? If a student happens to not pass a science or pass an ELA or the math MCAS, that's okay. The students have 10 times to retake it before graduation. So we have plenty of students that come in at all random times of the year. They just jump into a different schedule to take the MCAS when needed, so they'll definitely meet their graduation requirement. PSAT, typically the test is geared for juniors, okay? We offer the test to sophomores, so it's optional, fall of sophomore year. I'm not gonna say any of us recommend that, but it's there for sophomores if they want to take some practice. And then we definitely recommend juniors take it for kind of like a good baseline indicator of how they would do on the SAT. So MCAS, June, 9th grade, math and ELA, sophomore year. 11th grade, October is first PSAT. And then spring of junior year would be first standardized test, SAT or ACT. Okay, so we meet one-on-one with the students and we come up with a testing plan for them, what makes most sense in terms of the college perspective and what schools are looking for, and we iron out a specific plan. AP exams are offered every May, so whatever grade the student's in, the test is typically in May. And if anybody wants any kind of prep, Khan Academy has free SAT prep. I am not in any way pushing any of you to go home to ask your student to start prepping, but it's an option there if they choose to do so. We also have a list of SAT, ACT prep options on our school counseling website, also linked here in the presentation. So, like I said on the last slide, let's keep in mind, no pressure. We're really not trying to pressure them. That there are so many schools that are still test optional, so we're really not going to go crazy on the testing piece. The one other thing I want to say about the SAT, or I want to say ACT, but the SAT is that if you've had older students go through the school, or if you've heard of something called SAT with essay or SAT subject test, those no longer exist. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. So earlier, the MCAS was talked about with the graduation requirement. I just mentioned the schedule. Now I want to just talk about two possible scholarships that come directly from MCAS scores. Okay? So while we never pressure the students to take it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say take it. We never pressure the students to prep and go crazy to take the MCAS, but out of the MCAS scores, there are two state scholarships. Okay? There's the Koplik Scholarship and the Adams Scholarship. So I'm just going to quickly review the Koplik. All right, students need at least one advanced and two proficient for scores, and two additional requirements that are outlined, okay? That could be an AP score, it could be an award, It could be a Syracuse University or a college class, okay? So the criteria is needed in addition to those scores. And then the students find out if they are eligible to apply for this during junior year, okay? While the student is in college, they must maintain a 3.3 GPA to renew the scholarship. I'll tell you the amount in a minute, okay? The Adams Scholarship, students are notified in the fall of senior year, and it is just strictly based on the scores for 1 advanced, 2 proficient, and they have to be within 25% of the district, top 25% of the district. And the criteria to keep this scholarship, this tuition scholarship, they have to maintain at least a 3.0 in college. Okay? So money is money, it's great. So it's advertised as tuition, but it varies by UMass or state school. Okay? So it ranges anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a year for a UMass state or university, state college or university, and around $800 a year for Mass State Community College. Okay, so just to have a sense. If students receive both the Koplik and the Adams, our recommendation is for the student to pick the Adams because it's a lower criteria, maintain a 3.0 in college, and they don't have to do anything else to apply for the money. Okay, so hang tight if you get that letter, and when your student is a junior, hang out till senior year to find out whether or not they qualify for the Adams as well. All right, so we're going to have time. We're all going to come to the stage in a second so you can ask us your questions, but just like a quick wrap up. So our message, we've said tonight so many times, well-balanced, well-rounded, don't go crazy, keep things in perspective, okay? That's our biggest message. We really try to decrease the stress level. Student well-being is the top priority. That is the most important thing, and plus our message when we have seminars, when we meet with students, we meet with families, that's the most important piece. Balance, getting involved in school, community, anything, activities, to have that really well-balanced high school experience, okay? I know there are majority freshman parents in here, but for those sophomore parents, it's okay if students didn't do anything their freshman year and they don't start till sophomore year, that's fine. Freshmen don't go home, parents don't go home tonight and say, you need to join an activity, that's okay. Just know that it's important to get involved, as the years go by. Communication and connection with student, teachers, counselors, very important, okay? We tell our students all the time, we're your advocates in the building. Please, if anything comes up, we're here to help in any way that we can. And tomorrow morning, it's totally up to you, but we'll be hosting a virtual coffee hour with some of the counselors at 8:45 in the morning. The Zoom link is posted here. It's posted in the email. We received the email earlier today. It will be on the school council website. It will be all over the place, so please feel free to join us in the morning if you'd like to say hello or ask some more specific questions. Okay, so I'm going to bring all the counselors up here and hand the mic over to Ms. Hirsch.
Matt's looking out for us there, close to the edge of the stage. Perfect. So do we have some questions? Bear in mind that this is being recorded and it is a live stream, so we don't want to ask personal questions about the students here, but if there's some general questions, yes?
I have a very general question that most of you already know, but I'm still confused. So it seems to me at the level of the high school, it's very important not to miss classes. Because could get really into trouble if you're missing classes. So I'm a very conscientious student who doesn't want to miss classes. So does it ever reset the absences they have? Is this by term? Is it for the full year? I apologize for not knowing the answer.
So the question is around absences and students who want to make sure they're staying within the allowed number of absences.
Sit or stand. Yeah. So absence policy, students are allowed 6 absences per quarter. On the 7th absence, the grade, if a student's passing, if it's unexcused, the grade turns to what's called an FA, failure due to attendance, and it goes to a 59%, okay, so even if the student is passing. Now the student can earn back the grade that they earned in future quarters if they don't, hit their maximum number of absences. When the counselors meet with our students, they are excused absences. So when we pull them, we try to not pull them out of any test quizzes or projects or anything like that, but when we pull them out of class if we need to, that absence does not count against them in the attendance policy.
And if you have more absences, you could have a medical letter.
Yeah, anyone absent for a doctor's appointment or a dentist or something like that, just get a doctor's note, email it, have them bring it into the attendance office, and that is an excused absence.
And some other extracurricular activity that the family deems really important.
So if you go on vacation, it's not excused. And if your family, if you guys deem it as an important thing, I suggest call the dean or the attendance office, and they'll deem it whether it's excused or not, but nothing is really excused except for medical stuff at this point.
How about if my kids do German Saturday school and they have a standardized exam?
I would say talk to the dean is my best answer. So we don't excuse absences. 6 absences per term is a lot of absences, okay? So if you do that over 4 quarters, it's 24 absences a year. Like, that's a lot. So most students don't hit their, 7th absence per term. PE, physical education, is a little bit different. That's 4 absences, okay? And seniors have a totally different policy, but none of you have to worry about that right now, so I won't even get into that.
These are all excused, right? The 6 absences are the unexcused.
6 unexcused absences. Yeah. Another question? So the question is around community service hours that were completed the summer before 9th grade, and we do accept those, but not prior to that. In the back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the question was if there is an internship program that allows students to intern at different sites, right? Yeah, so there is for 11th and 12th graders, there is an internship program, and it's kind of plugged into their, well, typically it's G block, but I think that can be flexible in certain situations, but they do like to have that in that block so that they can, like Ms. Edson, who coordinates the program, she likes to be able to meet with the students, and she sits with them and finds a site in one of our placements. So there are a lot of different placements based on which field they're interested in. We haven't had that in a long time. We don't have that, but there are a lot of different places within the community that we have a relationship with for the program. So she can, I think there's going to be a presentation, or maybe there already was for sophomores and advisory. Am I right about that? If not, then that's going to be coming soon with the course selection process. So she'll be talking about that. And I know that they're going to have former students, or students who are in the program currently, talking about it. So.
I'm curious why there are no longer teacher recommendations on the levels for course selection. I always found those very helpful. And a related question, we usually would do the course selection through the parents' login on PowerSchool. Is that changing?
So the question is, why are the teachers no longer doing course recommendations for next year? And is the login under the parent or the student to make the request? The login process hasn't changed. So if you were going in under the parent, then that's the same process. In terms of why teachers aren't posting recommendations, I think we want the students to feel that they have some control over the choices that they're making, and some kids may feel boxed in and not willing to question what the teacher put down for a recommendation for next year. So we want them to be a little bit more thoughtful about their choices, certainly access their teachers to have a conversation that might be more meaningful about, you know, what the student hopes to do next year, and the teacher can give feedback along those lines, and then to talk with the counselors as well about what might make the most sense. So it's not that we're trying to have sort of a more thoughtful process rather than just simply the student sees one thing on the page and thinks that that's the end of the line for the conversation.
It's a related question. So do the counselors get a recommendation from teachers? Like, for example, if the student comes and says he wants biology, but, you know, then the counselor can reach out to the teacher, do the counselors get that feedback?
We don't have a formal process, so the question is, do the counselors get recommendations from the teachers directly? We don't. We can see the students' performance in the class. We can go in and see sort of the areas of strength and weakness for them among the assignments that they may be performing better in. And we can facilitate the conversation with the teacher, between the teacher and the student, if you wish to do that, yeah. Yes?
How important are AP classes in college admissions, and what's a typical number that a student looking at a selected college would want to take?
So the question is, how important are AP classes for college admissions, and what's a typical number that students take?
That's a great question. I think that there's no typical. We really don't recommend more than 2 AP courses in an academic year because they require a lot of extra work. It's on a scale of rigor. AP is the highest rigor course here at the high school and at any high school. I think it's important to understand that for AP courses, students only send their score to schools that they matriculate to, right? So, well, they send an official score report. You can mention it in the Common App, but like the most important thing about an AP course is sinking into a course that you're really interested in and taking that deeper dive in an area that, who knows, you just want to explore at a much deeper level. So Dr. Janger requires his sign-off if a student wants to take more than 4. And 4 is bananas. When a student is sitting in front of us in our office and wants to take 4 APs, our heart beats faster because we know what that looks like as far as workload, right? So we want to support students to, of course, take AP and stretch and reach and challenge themselves, but we certainly don't subscribe to take more than 2, 3 at max in a year. Yeah.
And just one more thing, we see the college acceptances and the denials, okay? And we know how many, like, you know, I had a student get into Harvard and Georgetown with 3 total APs over 4 years. So, you know, the culture and people think, oh, you gotta take tons of APs because you're never gonna get into a good college. Like, just so you know that that is not true, okay? So it's really important to look, like I said with my slide, holistic, whole picture. So the AP pressure, it's there culturally, and we really try to decrease it and diminish it, but we've had plenty of students get into amazing colleges with, you know, a couple of AP exams, AP courses.
I was wondering, with your, I don't know, but I'm guessing your student-to-counselor ratio is pretty high. What kind of support do you give for college essay writing? You mentioned something about, you know, loyalty.
So the question is about the student-counselor ratio being high and how much support do we offer for the college essay?
The English teachers are supporting the students typically spring of junior year in terms of writing their personal statement, and you can even look on the Common Application to see the under, like, I if you just Google Common Application, you can see first year applicants and you can see the sample questions there, so to try to, to begin to think and prepare. But the English teachers, spring of junior year, really support the students.
Yes?
Was the test optional trending before COVID, or was it really the logistics of COVID that kind of knocked the SATs out?
So was the test optional for standardized testing for colleges trending before COVID, or was it COVID that knocked that out of the equation? I'll come down the other end here. Yeah.
No, that's a great question. So it was kind of a slight descend heading into COVID, and then I think COVID was kind of the cliff that dropped it. But colleges were starting to realize, listen, we're far more interested in what a student does each day in school over the course of 4 years rather than how they perform on one Saturday morning. So I think they started to kind of weigh the outcomes there. And at this point, where we're slowly starting to research and come back to more normal times, I think a lot of them are seeing, we don't need that to be an important factor moving forward. So we'll see the bounce back probably in the next year or so, which will show us who's going to, again, recommend or require it. But at this point, it still seems that most schools are going test optional, and hopefully that continues to be the trend.
Yes?
As an add-on to that, one of you were talking about it earlier, you had said, and you see now for the class of 2025, that it's test optional. And I wonder if that was a misspeak you meant. So legit, like the kids who are currently sophomores will not need to take the test. All right.
No, I said that, sorry. No, I just said that we're starting to see colleges send us messages saying, we are now test optional for the class of 2025. So they're starting to come on. First they were like, in 2020 they said, test optional till 2023, and then 24, and then I saw BU the other day, 25. I'm just saying it's coming around. Not all schools, okay? Because we know down south are still requiring standardized tests some places on the West Coast, standardized tests. So it's an individual school situation. But yes, we're starting to see 2025. Can't promise for 2026, but yeah.
I have two questions. The first is, if you're a kid who does a lot of community service, is there any benefit in them logging any more than the minimum hours that they need? And my second question is, test optional, is test beneficial even if it's optional?
All right, so I will answer the test optional question. I'll repeat it in a second, and whoever wants to take the service question can take the service question. Okay, so test optional, is it beneficial to send scores? I'm just going to answer this because I happen to be the SAT person. So there's two things. There's something called test blind, where colleges won't even look at the score, so it doesn't matter what you get, all right? And then there's test optional, where students can send their scores if they want to send their scores. But why the data is so skewed is because who do you think is sending their scores right now? Students that are doing really well, okay? So that's why we have individual conversations with the students and we say, send them, don't send them, okay? So we're pretty blunt on that. We've had colleges call us and say, does that student want to pull their SAT out because it's going to hurt them? Okay, even though we're like 1350, I would never get that, you know what I mean? But it's really, so it's an individual basis, but that's a conversation we're definitely going to have with your student as it gets closer to their college application process. The second part of the question is community service. Is it beneficial to log more than the 40 required?
So I usually recommend to students to keep track of all those things that they're doing, whether it's community service hours, whether it's just activities. So we recommend to students to use the resume builder in Naviance to keep track of activities starting in 9th grade. So by the time they're a senior, they don't forget. When it comes to community service hours, we require that 40 before they graduate if they're here for 4 years. So if you have a child who's a sophomore and you're new to Arlington High School, they need the 30 hours. What they could do, potentially, is use that as a placeholder and a place to go back and kind of revisit those hours that they did earlier in high school. It doesn't factor into anything, different in terms of graduation. We get a spreadsheet each month about our seniors and their progress towards meeting the criteria for community service, and we're looking at that really for that 40. I think through X2 Vault too, students can actually print some kind of certificate that says how many hours they've logged. So it could be something that if your child is doing a large amount of hours beyond the required amount, it's a good place to keep track of it, but there's no benefit to doing it in terms of a requirement for anything. It was mentioned earlier for National Honor Society, students by the end of their sophomore year need to have logged, I think, 30 hours total, which is 10 more than a typical sophomore, if we're talking about the average of 10 per year, would need. So yes and no, there's a benefit to logging it, but we are looking for that 40 by their senior year.
Right here? Yeah.
Just curious how many students that you are responsible for?
How many students are we responsible for? So our current enrollment is about 1530, and there are 7 of us. Do the math. It's a fairly even distribution, but somewhere in the 200 and some odd range. We were fortunate to add a 7th counselor. This year we were up at 250 before that, so it brought us down a little bit, but enrollment keeps growing. We've taken in how many new students this year? 130 something. So we're constantly growing here at Arlington High School. It's a popular place to be. Yes?
How do you find out as a parent about community service options?
So right on the Arlington High School website, there's a community service page, and there's a lot of options directly on that page. Students are also emailed by grade level when opportunities come up. So usually it's through an email address that comes, it's AHS Community Service at arlington.k12.mi.us. We have 2 coordinators who work in the building. 2 of our teachers send those out when opportunities come up. There's a lot. They may have, and they talk about it in advisory. There's opportunities, definitely senior year, it becomes crunch time, and so we try to find opportunities for seniors to get in those final hours. So each year there's definitely opportunities that students are made aware of, and we're helping them to keep track of those as well and look at the numbers as we need to.
I also was just with the student today, so I know this. On the club website, on the AHS website, but for the student section of the website, there are all the different clubs, and they have Google Classroom codes with each club and tell who the advisor is. And there's a lot of clubs that have community service options within them. Also, there is one called the Community Service Club, which is specifically for earning community service during X block. So that's with Ms. Perez, and the Google code is like right next to each club, so they can definitely just join it and see what opportunities are there if they're interested.
And I was working with a senior who's in need of community service hours, and an email went out to every student here, 9th through 12th graders, yesterday about community service hours available over February break. Not that your student wants to do that, but they get emails all the time about opportunities. So if they happen to not know how to access them, they can just take a look at their emails.
I had a question about the format for SAT. I thought I heard somewhere that it's changing. It's going to computer-based versus pencil and paper. So just wanted to get your perspective on that and how it's changing.
So the question is about the format for the SATs and how it's changing, moving to computer-based tests, and Danielle is our SAT coordinator, so we will take her expertise.
And I really don't want to be. Once we go digital, someone else will be the coordinator. So SAT is going digital in 2024. So it's very scary, but your students will have plenty of computer-based experience because we do the MCAS on the computer. So I'm not totally sure infrastructure and what it's going to be like, but starting spring of 2024, which is when the current sophomores will be juniors, I guess. Yeah. So I'm going to learn with all of you. That's all I have to say. It's going to be fun.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Will kids with IEPs have an option to take those overlays?
So that's a great question. Students on IEPs or with accommodations, can they take a paper-based test? Great question. No. Yes, it's a specific accommodation that when the request is filled out, we need to request paper-based testing. Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to just a lot more general than specifics we've been speaking about. And our generation of kids has been massively impacted by COVID, right? By the shutdown period. These kids who were younger during that period probably, partly question and partly we know the answer is, they were probably more impacted than kids, children who are slightly older than them at this time. What kind of support and efforts, school, you all as counselors and otherwise, are being made to support the social and emotional sort of needs of this particular generation of kids who are 9 to 10 graders now relative to this effort to try to get back to where they should be from a developmental perspective?
So it's an important question, and you're raising the point about your children and students having been heavily impacted by interruptions from COVID in multiple ways. And what is the school doing to help support them socially and emotionally as we're working through some of those losses? Anybody want to tackle that?
I think it's a great question, and we've seen it in the building, so have the teachers, right? The increase in the universal mental health screeners, this was an initiative that was brought forward last year. One in the fall, one in the spring. This is true in the middle schools as well, right? We're trying to capture what are the needs of the students and how do we respond and pivot and meet those needs. So the fall, if a student screened high on the anxiety and depression scale, they were offered immediate support through us, through a school social worker and or a small group support setting where tools on how to reduce anxiety, there were little learning modules. An example of that would be how to meditation, deep breathing, so actual skills that would align with where there needed to be some support. So those two mental health screeners are early, and these are new. This isn't the SBIRT or the YRBS that I talked about. So those were two initiatives in direct response to kind of the lagging social emotional skills that we saw as a result of COVID. I think another response to that is a hiring of an additional school social worker here at the high school level. So that is a really important addition to help make sure that we're capturing the needs of the students here. Yep. Oh, another thing I just wanted to mention too is in response to those that need necessary support, Arlington High School and actually the district of Arlington Public Schools partnered with this organization called Interface, and that was in an effort to help connect parents with counselors outside of school. So that had mixed success, but it was in an effort to address that need and concern.
I think we've hit our 8 o'clock time limit. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Reach out to us with questions, ways we can support you and your students. We look forward to working with you. Thanks again.